Hello, everybody. Welcome back to That Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, alongside you guys as always. Be sure to subscribe and follow the podcast here on this channel. Also, do not forget to subscribe to the podcast on the other channel that we had started. We're near 70 subscribers over there. So again, just want to give that reminder out there. Keep going over there. The short form videos that I edit and post on other social media platforms will be permanently on there for the time being until we sort of make this transition. But for now, again, we reiterate the podcasts and the live will be live on here and living on here for the time being until we let you guys know otherwise. But more of the same, Santangelo, has been happening with this club. And this past weekend was no different. Milan take another loss against Torino. Had mentioned their record was absolutely atrocious. The past 10 years in Turin, one win over the course of 10 years, and now 11 matches. So that streak sort of continues. It's not really much of a streak. The only victory there was the infamous 7-goal W in the year that Milan finished second to Inter in the Antonio Conte year. This is quite honestly your typical Milan match. I mean, Antonio Vitiello had tweeted it out. I thought he was spot on about it. Milan don't play a normal game. I had tweeted out as well another instance, or just an example, multiple examples, excuse me, on why this club continuously decides to shoot itself in its own foot and not even give themselves a chance to play a real game. You go back to the Musa red card against Zagreb. You're against, Magnan conceding early against Feyenoord, where that goal that they score is just ridiculous. It's not even, a great goal by them. Again, Teo Hernandez's red card puts Milan in a terrible position, and they concede while being down a man. And lo and behold, here we are today with Torino. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of, some of these players that have nothing to do with the stupidity that we see, having to deal and play with being down within the first 5 minutes, man. Like I was answering somebody while I was watching on my phone, and I just heard through my AirPods that we had conceded, and I'm so like angry by the way they concede. Like, this is stupid. This is like garbage. Where how do these players not feel demoralized, Matt? How do fans not feel demoralized by what's happening? I mean, an own goal in which goes down in the books as Chow's fault, when realistically this is Mike Magnan doing a really poor job of clearing the ball. So, I mean, Milan off to a freaking garbage start within 5 minutes, and your perspective on all of that.
Yeah, I think Vitiello is spot on with his assessment of this current Milan and the way they go into certain matches and ultimately the way they come out of certain matches. They don't play normal matches. The goals they concede, not all the time, but man, more times than not, you feel as though for every game, there's always a self-inflicted wound. There's always a freak own goal. There's always a train wreck red card that leads to a penalty or leads to a playing down a man, and then it's goals coming in. I mean, even the Zagreb game, right, where they kind of had some new life, where they equalized the game, and then they give it away just moments after. Like, they don't play a polished, clean game. I can't remember the last time they've played a polished, clean game, and I know people might be able to mention it quicker than I can, but truly it feels as though that every game that
We're not going to count Roma Coppa Italia, by the way. We're not.
It feels like every game feels like an absolute grind. It doesn't feel as though that Milan and any lead they have is comfortable holding a lead. Like 2-0 doesn't feel comfortable for Milan. It should for most teams. Teams that are of Milan stature, teams that have the quality that Milan has, at least in the names themselves. Sure. They don't do that. And in a match like this, it's a perfect example of that. It doesn't have to be the Champions League. You don't play good football, clean football, teams will make you pay. And the own goal, prime example. I thought for me, Magnan, again, easier said than done from my couch, but you kick that away. Why are you trying to hoof it over a 6'4", 6'5" defender? Kick it away. You're facing trouble. It's the 5th minute. Just
even the angle he was on, it goes out of play. Like, I don't.
That's number one. Number two, the switch off. which involved Malik Chow. The switch off gives away a goal. They're bitching and moaning.
We'll get to that
Yeah,
part.
but
Let's
it's
stick
just
right. Yeah.
bottom line is this team, man, like the lack of focus, the lack of just locking in for a 90-minute match and doing the fundamental things correctly. They don't do. Certain players, certain individuals seem to do their job and to do this and to do that. But man, like you look at everybody and every single moment you feel as though you have to touch it with kid gloves and white gloves and be like, I don't know, like maybe we just clear the
Yeah.
ball or we do this, we do that, because you don't feel as though that anything is safe that this team touches or that this team goes into.
And again, to what my larger point was sort of being, and I'm not even excusing it, and I'm not saying like this Milan side is good. We don't even have the opportunity to see if they're decent enough to climb back into this top 4 race, because they put themselves in an impossible position to get into this game. Like, I know it's very obvious that we knew what happened, and these mistakes are reflected in the scoreline, right? But you literally look at it from the perspective of, you take out the 2 stupid instances, and we'll get to the second one. But Milan are immediately within 5 minutes on the road where they didn't concede a shot, and they're down 1-0, and they're chasing the game. And you know this, and anyone else who's watched this league for a very long time, you know how difficult it is to play down on the road in Serie A, and to come back into that, where Torino is a respectable side. They're tough at home. And guess what? They have one of the better goalkeepers in Serie A. Milinkovic-Savic is a pain and thorn in a lot of teams' side. This isn't like a one-off where people are like, oh my God, he saved Pulisic's penalty. Like, who is this guy? He's known to do this. And
Yeah,
by the way,
yes,
yeah, he's perfect this year. I believe 80% for his career as well. And you know this as well. Probably the most annoying thing, and I knew this statistic instantly on my own, Milan had more own goals against Torino this year than they got points. 2 own goals against Torino. They got 1 point in the 2 matches. I mean, and they were lucky to get that 1 point, by the way. Very fortunate, whatever you want to talk about it, right? And so to me, what is so eerily obvious and annoying about this is that I'm going to say something that'll probably bother a lot of people. Milan played fine out of the stupidity. Outside this stupidity, they had a real chance to win this game, and they should have won this game. Milinkovic-Savic was incredible. How many times did we actually say during that match, like, oh my God, like that, those were incredible saves. It was really difficult to stop him. And how many times do we also have to say this season, those 2 goals that they conceded should have never have happened. Should have never have happened. I am so irritated by this. And to your point, individuals lock in, individuals don't lock in. You blame the coach, don't blame the coach. Players who want a lot of money, and especially a Magnan in this situation, have to step up. Like, I'm sick of it. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the excuses. I don't want to talk about that. Again, we'll stick to the first half, right? Do you want to go to the Pulisic penalty, or is there anything else that you want to kind of talk about when Milan are like chasing this game down, 1-0 basically at the start?
I think that this match is a really good indicator of, just how reckless Milan can be. If it's not self-inflicted errors, if it's not red cards, it's freak own goals. They don't just seem like they're in control of matches. They don't seem like they're in control of what's going on. There's ways to win tight games, right? Like, people will misconstrue a 1-0 win away to a team like a Verona or a Cagliari or whoever, and think that, man, they barely beat this team. There's Milan aren't really even putting in professional performances. Like, they're not even putting in those performances that I always harp back on during the Scudetto winning season. And that is something that this Milan team, at least in quality-wise, and in my opinion, in the coach they have, should be capable of doing. They should be able to have the mentality to lock in and get those victories like this on the road to a Torino. And there's the differences between them. And I know Napoli lost this week to Como, so credit to Como, but it's interesting how certain teams that are legitimate contenders for the Scudetto, the way they just will kind of toss and discard a Torino aside. Not maybe easily, but they get the 2-0 or 2-1.
Like, they handle the game.
And they handle the game. I don't think that we're being unreasonable with what we're looking for. And I don't think Milan fans are being like, I don't think anybody at this stage of the season, 25 match days in, we're midway through or closing in March, that anyone's asking for peak Barcelona type football here. We're not asking for a sort of reinvention of football. We're asking simply for results. Any way you can get them, any way you slice it, any way you can get them. They can't do it. And it's going to get harder because a lot of now the window closes in, right? One by one, you start losing games, and Milan quickly becomes 7, 8, 9 points out of top 4, not top 5. I'm not even going to say top 5 because it's top 4 pretty much for me, in my opinion, based on the coefficients and everything.
Unless they win every conference Europa.
Right. Yeah. But they don't even deserve that extra bit of luck and fortune.
No, they don't.
Right? They don't. Regardless if they even get 5 places for Serie A, they don't deserve top 5 anyway.
They don't even deserve top 7.
In Serie A that have been better than Milan this year.
Roma deserves to be ahead of them. Yeah,
the way Roma are playing, 4-0 Monza. I'm not trying to say that Roma is any sort of world beater, but just the way Milan are navigating this season, this has been, and I tweeted this out and it got a ton of traction. This has been like such a grueling season and one of the more disappointing and frustrating and challenging seasons to watch and digest as a Milan fan in recent years. For the simple fact of you have names that should be competing. Do you have the revenues that should be indicative of a stronger team? You have all these things. You have the people saying that we have this ambition, yada, yada, yada. The interview, the GQ, we're not going to talk about it. But it's all the talk. It's all the names. And here, what do we have to show for it? Bounced embarrassingly in the Champions League. You win a Super Cup. You find you have Coppa Italia. But look at Serie A. Like, embarrassing performances. This Milan team this season does not deserve anything, regardless of whether or not they get into top 4 and they somehow are able to go on a run and make that top 4 chase work. They don't deserve anything this year. They have ton of issues, and we can't even point directly, Martino, to injuries, which has always been the crutch that people have leaned on in recent years. While we're injured, then it's the coach, and then it's this, and then it's that. We don't have a striker. What's the excuse? We haven't had like a string and abundance of severe injuries to this team. We've had players go down here and there, but more or less in a game like this, you fielded Pulisic, you fielded Leao, you fielded Jimenez, you fielded Ja Felix. What's the excuse? I'm done with it. I'm done. I'm like this. Watching this team is so exhausting. The banter era, for what it was worth, at least you kind of had an expectation going into certain games that, hey, we're not spending. This team is not serious. Let's maybe win a game and maybe we have something to be cheerful about. This Milan team should be performing a lot better than what they're showing, and they're simply not doing it. And I think that there's a one common denominator here. We even talked about it. What's the common denominator, Martino?
I've said it all the time, but people don't want to listen to me. They don't want to listen. And the players are losers. That's what they are. A lot of them. And I don't dislike them in general. I just think that, and it's not even like to single out someone like Leao. Leao is like someone that people love to be looking at as a poster boy. Also, the substitution, not really sure with that. Subbed off at the half. Milan are chasing the game. They take off one of the best players in Serie A. Who knows the reasoning? I didn't see a reasoning.
I think he mentioned, Concede did mention like the adductor. So like he's kind of like nursing and like.
He's clearly not healthy there. And whatever, that's besides the point, right? Production isn't there. At the end of the day, we say it with every player. If you're out there on the pitch, you're expected to perform. So I'm not going to change that on any player. So for me, I think what ultimately comes down to this frustration is the lack of conviction, the lack of attention to detail, which ultimately does you in matches like this. I mean, seriously, like last year with Milan, it was just objectively terrible defense, right? And we saw a good part of this year where they're getting slice and dice centrally. Now these are just inexcusable.
Bonehead, clumsy errors.
And it went back to last year. I had made this point to Ali Fisher, in a chat that him and I are just always discussing. And I was just telling him, I was like, listen, we had this spell last year around this time where Milan are picking up red cards, doing stupid things. There were terrible silver linings and stuff all around there. And it's just really the lack of reaction from the team and the
The
conviction.
urgency,
And
the
again,
urgency is
it's
never there.
really annoying because the moments in which Milan go down, then you watch the game. Torino again didn't really have that much. Much like the Feyenoord situation, they didn't really do that much. These teams were not actually creating and having amazing chances. Like for instance, the match against Parma to start the year, right, or even the second match against Parma, they were creating really good chances against Milan. They had their opportunities. These couple of matches here, it's none of that. It's player A has a brain fart. Guy who wants an extension and get paid as one of the top players in Serie A has another brain fart. I mean, Magnan makes too many mistakes to get paid the money that he wants. And I'm serious. I'm talking about 5.5 million. Some people are like, oh, well, yeah, he's not getting paid more than no. 5 million net is too much for Magnan. For the amount that he is making mistakes, in my opinion, he has some great saves. 5 million seems like a lot. It seems steep. And if an offer comes in which is deemed like around 40 million or so, I'm taking it. I'm not second guessing it. Teo Hernandez, love what he's done for the club. Again, same thing. Offers come in, I'm taking it. Leao, I need a lot. I need a lot for that convincing. I think he's too good. He changes games way too much. Teo, for what he doesn't produce enough offensively and what he is as a defender, but that's besides the point, right? So we'll just kind of like move on into like this. This is like kind of compounds that frustration with Pulisic missing his first ever penalty. It wasn't even that bad of a shot. It was just a great save by Milinkovic-Savic. And I don't know about you. I think like other people as well can kind of seem like, the saying as it goes, when it rains, it pours. You almost felt like when he was stepping up to the spot, this is a guy with a perfect record. I don't know about this. I don't feel good. I don't feel good anytime they take the pitch or something happens. This is a great save by Milinkovic-Savic. There's no rebound goal to score. And then again, by the way the game started, Matt, it just compounded the frustration. It just makes it a bigger microscope into what's happening is that when things don't go their way, they really don't go their way. And it's starting to hurt them in the long run. And I have a hard time blaming the manager too. But just strictly, like, for me, I'm not even going to overanalyze this Pulisic thing. I know you won't either. Keeper makes a great save. Bad time to miss your first penalty, to be quite honest with you. And that's really all I have to take away from it, because this guy has a perfect record. Like, it's not a trend with him. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're spot on. I read at the time when he did have the penalty saved that someone said it wasn't the best one, but it was still like a pretty good save. I disagree.
Yeah.
I think it was a pretty solid penalty. He's made that type of penalty and he's converted many times with it. That nice low, like near post, if you will, shot, and he's gotten it past the keeper. Vanja is just, again, a different animal, I feel. He's been not just doing this versus Milan. He's been one of one of Serie A's better goalkeepers over the past handful of years. It's easy to kind of fly under the radar when you're playing for a club like Torino. You're not playing, big competitions, but he's a pretty good shot stopper. And I'm a bit surprised that he hasn't gotten at least a look at a bigger move. But I digress with that. It is what it is. I mean, I think Pulisic, he posted on his Instagram story, how disappointed he was. And, he basically ended with saying, we're going to do everything we can to, give the fans something to cheer about and to finish the season strong. I mean, the guy, he's been perfect from the spot. I can't fault him for this. Even if they does make it still 2-2, you still dropped points against a team that, frankly, you need to win. When it's not the main 3-4 teams, you, by all accounts, right now, when you're in the position Milan's in, you can't afford to drop points. You have to win games because you didn't do yourself any favors earlier in the season when you dropped points against some of these other teams.
Against them themselves, against Torino themselves.
You don't get the luxury to have a stinker against a Torino in match day 24-25 in the middle of February. You don't get that luxury. You don't get the fortune of having a guy who's been nails and lockdown from the penalty spot his entire career have one get saved. You don't have the luxury of that. The margins are so fine. When you don't convert a penalty, you give away one on an own goal, and then another one you're caught sleeping on a free kick and they score a great goal. Great finish.
It was a great finish. Yep.
Three things. And to your point, Torino didn't really they aren't this sort of offensive juggernaut. Like, that's 3 things right there, and Milan lost the game by a goal. That's it. That's all it takes. That's all it takes is
In a
moments.
week where other clubs were dropping
Yep.
points, and
All it
Milan
takes
once
is
again
moments.
had an opportunity to
Yep.
step up, like Lazio losing
Yep.
against Verona. Napoli is whatever at that point, right? But Fiorentina had also lost. To
Juventus win
me,
1-0. They keep it
just
pushing. That doesn't
yeah.
help.
Juve are going to get that 4th spot. I think it'll be Atalanta, Juve. Maybe Atalanta will fall out. We'll see what kind of happens there. They had a great win. And again, I guess we'll kind of like talk about this a little bit. Substitutions made. Reijnders, once again, I mean, this guy's saving Milan's ass. He's just having a great year. He's had a rough spell in 2025. There's no denying that. I think there is a correlation there in the position in which he's
Yep.
playing in and where Concede has placed him on the pitch. Again, Warren Bondo, you are my only hope. This, to me, is kind of, once again, reflective of players, unfortunately, having to make sacrifices, or their game is being sacrificed because they need to pick up the slack in which management failed to get players to adequately put them into positions. Because if they have somebody that could play or deploy in a double pivot, then listen, João Felix doesn't have to play. We don't have to deal with João, okay? And to rip into him, I think he's so irrelevant right now in these matches. He's not even worth talking about. That's how useless he's been. And I don't even want to rip on the guy. He's on a loan, like whatever. Like, he's had a up and down career, but you see why. You just watch the games. You just look at him. You look at number 79 and you say, "Who are you? You are a ghost." It's like an invisible player of FIFA's broken, that you just see the jersey and shorts running around and they're not actually doing anything. That's what João Felix is to me. I think he's just, unfortunately, utterly useless. I think he's drastically overpaid, and there's zero chance he has a future at the club. And again, to your point with this, it's an immediate conceding of a goal. Immediately. There was, again, I know I'm bringing up my Twitter, but I'm like, Reijnders, he saves them. I was going to be happy with a point. I was going to be happy
That
with
was the 73rd minute. There was 20
73rd,
minutes.
74th, and then they concede 76. Once again, we'll talk about it because you've been almost like itching to get to it. I mean, it's pathetic. It reminds you, anytime you see a free kick taken quickly, you just think of the corner and Trent and Origi and Liverpool. But for me, this is like, everyone's napping. The most important thing there, you just tied up the game. All hands on deck. That's the part and time where you're most vulnerable, is right when you concede a goal. And that's the problem with me and Milan. And I know I tweeted it out, and I'm not trying to blame Chaw or pick at Chow like that. How does Gabia not get these starts? Gabia, in those moments, I'm sorry, we've seen it all year long ever since he returned from Spain. That guy in that moment steps up. How many times have we seen him make that key block that you think about, like, holy shit, if Gabia's not there, I think we lose. This game, quite honestly, felt like that. And I'm not trying to rip into Conceição. He's had a really difficult task to take over. And I think he deserves blame. There's no denying that. But what is he realistically supposed to do? You're playing every 3 days. You have no time to train. You have all these expectations for Champions League, this or that, and your players are being morons. Your players are being idiots. It's like self-sabotage of the highest order. I think that's what makes it even more frustrating, and I know you know that. Just, again, with the quick concession here, dude, like, where's your head at? Where is your head at for any of you? I don't get it. Who are you arguing with? Over what? If the call is going to get reversed, it's going to get reversed. Like, please stop arguing. Pay attention. Enough. I just, honestly, it's just, you. Sometimes when things are bad, and I'll let you go again. Like, sometimes when things are bad, you actually don't have to analyze anything. You let everything you see speak for itself.
Yeah,
There's not much to say.
There isn't.
It's amateur.
There really isn't, honestly. And what I just explained is my feelings right now watching this team. I watch because I have a strong love and affection and passion for this club. You do as well. We wouldn't be here talking for 25 minutes at this point. After a work day on a Monday about a match like this, if we didn't care about this club, right? We would just, okay, whatever. The results aren't going our way. We're not going to record this week. We're not going to put out podcasts. We had nothing to play for the rest of the year. Whatever.
Just real quick before you get, brother, guys, this podcast was birthed during the banter era.
Yeah, this
this
has been
this
7,
is
8
nothing.
years.
This is child's play.
7, 8 years. You guys can go back and look at the podcast. I think we were initially on SoundCloud.
We're on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't even know what the name of the podcast was. But anyway.
We didn't even have one. We just put them out. Yeah.
Exactly. So this team, it's the roller coaster of being a Milan fan, and not really just a Milan fan, but the roller coaster of being a football fan, because these things tend to happen. There's an element to this sport which makes it beautiful, that like you just create a little bit of luck, you get those results, right? Like I looked at it, that Scudetto winning season, and we've looked at it in even previous years, right? Where that Tonali goal against Lazio, that was huge down the stretch. Just making getting something from absolutely nothing. Ball crossed into the box, bounces out a foot. If you just create you create the pressure and you just lock in, it's amazing how you can just kind of steal some results.
Yeah.
And that's really, truthfully, all I'm asking for at this point in time. I don't care who scores the goals. Divock Origi could score goals. He could come up and score goals. I do not care.
Keep forgetting about that.
I don't care if Rafa gets no goals the rest of the season and we somehow get into top 4. I don't care. I just don't care.
Team above all.
But this team, again, they have to play a perfect match by all accounts to win. It feels like it truly does feel like that. And maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration, but
no,
it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it. They played a game against you. You play the games that they played against Real Madrid away at the Bernabeu. You derbies, very tight games. They did it in a very short amount of time under Sergio Concede. You knock off Juve. You knock off Inter. You come back after a couple goals down in the second half and beat Inter. And you scratch your head and you watch games like this. And you watch Cagliari. And you watch Zagreb and Feyenoord. And you look and you're like, yeah, this group is not a winning group. It's not a winning group. And I can't even say, well, it's not the Scudetto winning team. Most of the team is not from that Scudetto winning season, not even here anymore anyway. It's a different group, and this group is not a winning group. It is not a winning group. I'm sorry.
It's just not a well-balanced team.
And even players like a Tijani, who was, in my opinion, probably the best player for Milan in the first half of the season. I don't think there's
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think there's any disputing that.
Him or like Pulisic, you could argue, but yeah, I say Tijani.
And now you bring in a guy like João Felix on loan, and look, I liked the move at the time. I always kind of had this question of, well, if he plays to the potential and the ability that we've seen in the past, it could be a good deal for Milan. But again, to your point, you're seeing why. And now Tijani, at the sacrifice of trying to shoehorn João Felix into this team, Tijani's not really playing in an ideal position for himself, in my opinion. Which I think there was a couple people that mentioned, him being out of position and how much impact it's had. That's number one. Number two, Musa is playing over Fofana, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but again, like you look at Sergio's selections and the way he's kind of gone about certain matches, and it really does make you scratch your head a little bit, because the timing of substitutions, and people have been saying it, and I'm not going to sit here and just kind of absolve him from any wrongdoing. Some of the decisions he's made in recent matches should be scrutinized, should be questioned. I know this is not an easy job coaching this team, but you signed up for the job. And right now, he also has to take accountability, which he has. But this team, like I said, and I'm going to end it there, they have to play a stainless game in order to win, it feels like. And they're not capable of that right now.
No. Musa seems like a walking yellow card most of the time.
Yeah, every game, yellow card.
I thought his yellow card in this game was inexcusable. I don't even think it was necessary. He's kind of frustrating. He's part of the trials and tribulations of signing some of these young players like Chow, young player. Again, Chow, I'm not really blaming for the goal, but just that's also like the other thing again. And I've mentioned this. It's like the leaders are the ones messing up, not even so much the young guys at the same time. I think it's a mix of both, but either way, yeah, I agree with you on like the substitutes as well. It's frustrating. It is what it is. Milan have 13 matches to turn this around, and one of those matches is a makeup game against Bologna. And to be quite honest with you, I said it even before the Torino match that we were discussing last episode. I didn't really feel good about that match, this one, and the one against Lazio. For me, Milan Bologna is this makeup game where Bologna love to play Milan in a position like this.
Yeah.
Milan, once again, I think it's really impossible to sit here and see like, oh yeah, they'll be okay. They'll be this. They'll be that. Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, listen, this one's on the road. This one's a makeup game. This one's on a shortened week. Milan play. This one's being played on Thursday. Then they have a turnaround on Sunday to play Lazio, and then Milan can start playing once a week, and we'll see if there's any improvements with that. But the realistic thing is here, as you mentioned, and as we have said many times since Milan have descended into this position of hell, is that just get a result, win the game. Simple. The only way to start turning these things around is just by winning. Saturday to Thursday is a decent enough break. Doesn't seem like they have a starting right back. Kyle Walker likely to miss this one. He might be back for Lazio. Again, Loftus-Cheek still not back. I'm basically at the point of like, I don't actually kind of care who starts in this one. I prefer no Felix. I would like to see maybe put TG back closer to goal, but I think since Felix didn't really play at Chelsea at all, he's on loan with Milan, and you know they're trying to get the best out of him. I anticipate him starting once again. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, you just have to win, just straight up. Santiago Castro is a problem on Bologna. I think they've been okay. They've had some poor performances. They pull out some wins. They have individual qualities within their side. Vincenzo Italiano is a respectable manager, in my opinion, as well. Ultimately, for me, I think what's going to have to come down to Milan being successful in this one is stop being idiots. Quite frankly, I think Milan get a result if they're not idiots. Truthfully. I know I've been like truthfully negative throughout this like podcast, but I had also highlighted and mentioned in between these stupid plays, I've seen some decent football where they're creating, it's taking some great job. Like again, prior to Feyenoord, I don't care who Feyenoord fielded, Milan looked good. Then Teo screwed them. Milan don't even have a chance against Torino. They're down 1-0. Really difficult spot to look good. They should have won that game. There was a penalty. TG scored the 2 goals that they had conceded. Garbage. For me, Milan have to step up with this. This is pride. I think they get a result. I'm not going to sit here and say they win. I ultimately think they actually get a result. Backs against the wall, Milan. That's kind of my reasoning here. Obviously, I could easily see them losing this and them further plummeting into despair. But I think Milan squeak out a result here. And a result isn't always great, but, you know, I guess you got to kind of take it at this point. It's a difficult one on a shortened week and on the road against Bologna in a makeup. Hopefully it goes their way. And Lazio, I should mention, by the way, because Lazio, we might not have a podcast until then. Lazio, the game will be on the weekend. We should mention Lazio play against Inter during the middle of the week, so they're going to have a fixture as well. So just to kind of preview into that, but we're not talking about Lazio today. So go ahead for Bologna.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. This has the makings of just a 1-1 draw, and that Milan barely. They have that. The Milan will get opportunities in this game because I don't think that's really necessarily been the biggest issue for them. It's again, do I trust this team away to gather themselves after a horrid past couple weeks?
26 shots, 8 shots on goal against Torino.
I truly just don't trust this team right now. And I said 2-1 last week because I actually thought that they were gonna have some sort of response after the exit. I thought that was kind of be like the natural.
Oh, they responded immediately, dude. Yeah.
And 2-1, I got the result right, just in the wrong way. You know, so I mean, I don't know, honestly. I don't know really what to expect from this team anymore. I mean, I think that 1-1 seems like a correct and fair prediction. That's me giving Bologna credit also because this is a team that can get results. They can play some good football. They have guys that can beat Milan and that will exploit Milan in the event that they commit silly errors in the back. And not to mention, it's not even just the defense. Calling out Mike Maignan too, because when your defense is playing the way it's playing and it's been very inconsistent, for the guy that's asking for a new deal that is reportedly getting around 5.5 million.
Yeah. Yep.
Come on, man. Some of these saves or some of the ones that he's allowing they're bad. Like he's not getting beat with fantastic strikes. The one goal against Torino, the second one, that was a nice goal. It was a nice finish, right? But point being is, man, like every time a ball goes near him, even if he has to clear it, like even the things that were very calming about having Mike back there as like a field general, someone to organize the defense, someone that can pull out a key save, and if the defense is playing poorly, he can kind of save your ass and imagine you win. I don't trust him right now. So confidence is very low in that phase of the game. And for that reason, I think I'm going to go 1-1. I just don't see Milan going into this environment and getting the result they need. And mind you, Bologna is also on level on points with Milan. So this is a team that's also trying to make a statement and say, hey, like everyone's talking about Milan's top four hopes. A win here for Bologna is massive for them. Make no mistake about it. That would be a huge victory for them to put themselves at least in the conversation for a European spot. So I'm going to go 1-1, and I think Milan, a lot of questions still will persist around this team more than answers.
Yeah, I mean, no answers will happen until maybe summer.
Yeah.
I think people sort of expecting answers sooner. I'm not saying people are. Just even if your brain gets there, don't do that. There's no real point in it. For me, yeah, listen, just if they get a result with this, they're 41 points locked on with thumb. Fiorentina ahead, Lazio ahead, obviously Juve as well. Milan have to win these massive head-to-heads. Like this is like they got to pull a rabbit out of their hat with this, and then Lazio. We'll see what Lazio sort of do. Inter are in a very strange predicament as well. How that Coppa Italia sort of transpires. What does Lazio kind of favor or want to push their direction in, right? So, like to me, what they decide to do is big in what happens this weekend as well, because this is a quick turnaround. Thursday to Sunday is quick. How many minutes do certain players have? Are they able to extend and go on to Sunday against Lazio? Like, what's the balance here? Does Rafa only give you 45 minutes against Torino? How many does he have against Bologna? How many does Pulisic have?
These all sound like, to me, frankly, truthfully, when it comes to workload, when it comes to minutes, you want to play in the Champions League, you want to play for a Champions League club, you want to play for a top club, get used to playing a lot of minutes, get used to a grueling schedule. I know Serie A seems to be a little bit more grueling lately, right? Where they kind of
I think a lot of this has to.
But point of being is everyone wants the glory and the attention that comes with playing for a club like Milan and big clubs for that matter, not just a Milan in this conversation. Get used to playing minutes, get used to playing games and the quick turnarounds. And this isn't, in my opinion, a matter of tired legs. This is a matter of the mental. These players are not. A lot of errors are because of that.
I think it's a mix of both. I think their awful start, like we've mentioned multiple times, forces them to have to play everybody now, where you can't just like rotate a little bit and feel a little bit more comfortable. So, like, for example, Sotil starting, right? And Chukwueze. Milan aren't in a position where they have to chase points. They have to win. And your best chance to win is playing your best every game.
Even if
ideally, you don't have to do that. But Sotil and Chukwueze are virtually unplayable. You see Alexis Salamaker score a banger today against Monza. I mean, it was an insane hit. And again, I'm saying this with my chest out. I don't care. Keep Alexis. Do not give Roma anything unless they pay up big time. And sell Chukwueze. Like, this is a very simple fix, in my opinion. But guess what? Probably won't be. We'll see what ultimately happens with Milan. Stay tuned with lineups and that. Might be able to go live after the game against Lazio on Sunday. Again, we really appreciate everybody that has helped grow this channel. So again, do not forget to subscribe to That Milan Podcast. Link is in the description of the video. Again, follow Matt at Matt_Santangelo at AC Milan Bros. Again, growing great pages over there at That Milan Pod. On TikTok, we have ourselves on Instagram. We have the Twitter as well. We are closing in on 900 followers on Twitter. We are close to 6,000 subs here on this channel. So again, 70 or so, I think, away from that. So we're able to get to 70. That would be a grand old time. And again, we truly appreciate you guys helping us out. You can follow me at Martino_Pucci on Instagram, at Martino Pucci everywhere. And yeah, SemperMilan.com podcasts, Milan Weekly podcast, Milan Coast to Coast, MLM podcast with Max and Gino, Old Hard Rossonero. Again, Football Kush and his channel, me Marco's channel, Milan Fan TV. I was on their podcast last week. Good guys making good content. They're very funny friends north of the border in Toronto that do a good job of that over there. And that's pretty much all the content that we really help and promote on this channel. All great people, all good Milan fans that we want to push you guys in that direction. If you're tired of listening to us, or if you're done listening to us. And no offense taken to anyone who wants to take a time off from listening about Milan. It's a chore to even do these. So don't even worry about it. We appreciate all of you. And hopefully some new design stuff coming soon for the podcast that we just kind of want to finalize before all of that happens. But yeah, anything else, Matt, before the sign off?
No, just thanks for everyone consistently tuning in to our podcast, listening, watching, supporting any way you guys can. We appreciate it. And yeah, let's hope some results turn our way very soon. But again, to Martino's point, if you need to detach and just kind of enjoy your weekend versus letting Milan ruin it, I can understand that. Yeah, thanks for sticking with us for 42 minutes or so. This one.
Yeah. Pretty quick one by our standards. So thank you guys so much. Take care.